Hello from a very windy Belfast city airport. It's about 2 days before my main trip and I'm here to take a PCR test to make sure that I can travel to Iceland. See what mine looks like.
And my Icelandic.
I'm Patrick Hughes and this is Planet Patrick.
I used the Randox testing unit just inside the main hall of Belfast City Airport. I have to say it was very straightforward and I wasn't waiting for very long. The PCR test was over and done within 2 minutes.
That was about as pleasant as somebody sticking a giant cotton bud up your nose might be. But look, it was fine, and if that's what it takes to travel safely, then I'm fine with that. On we go.
A question I get asked a lot on the YouTube channel is whether there are any requirements for travel between Belfast and London. No, this is treated as a domestic flight, and so nobody was looking for my test results, my PCR. No one was looking for my vaccination card.
Good morning from London Heathrow.
The first person to look for evidence of my vaccination was the check-in agent. I had been a little bit concerned that my vaccination card, which was the only evidence available of my vaccination in Northern Ireland, would not be considered sufficient. However, when she looked at it, she was like, "This is fine, no problem." She didn't look for my PCR test at all. I have to say it was very strange to see Heathrow so quiet, and COVID rules were being taken very seriously. Before long, it was time to board my Boeing 737 MAX to Keflavik Airport and head for Iceland.
That was such a smooth flight, and the service was really marvellous on Iceland Air in Saga class. Food was good, drinks were good. We went through passport control very quickly. There's very few people around, but we haven't done the crucial part yet, which is making sure that everybody has had the appropriate vaccination and PCR tests to enter Iceland. I think that's up next. Out of breath from walking so quickly. Whew.
No filming was allowed for the next part, so you're not going to see any film for the next few seconds. There are two things to mention here. First, a border agent checks your vaccination details. He had a look at my vaccination card from Northern Ireland and was extremely happy. He placed a printed label on a small bottle of fluid, handed it to me, and waved me on to the next step. And the next step is to have your PCR test. And that happens inside the grey temporary building you see in the photograph above. You pass through the door, you are directed to a medical person who uses a large cotton bud to swab the back of your nose and throat in a rather forceful fashion, placing it into the small vial of fluid and allowing you to leave. You can see that the test building is right outside the airport, which is right beside where the flybus takes off to go to downtown Reykjavik. It's expected that you go immediately to your hotel where you await your quarantine results, which do come through within 4 to 5 hours. It's pretty quick. But how do you find food? I've had some coffee, so I'm feeling vaguely human again. I've been trying to work out this website that everyone talks about, aha.is, that I mentioned earlier. And I thought you could order groceries on it. You can, but you have to order like a day in advance, so that's no good for tonight. I think I've ordered an Indian curry. We're not sure. We're not sure what's going to show up. It cost an arm and a leg, and there was a minimum order amount of 3,400 Icelandic kroner. So to get it up to that, I was going to add something else to eat, but that was an extra £15. And anyway, so I just added loads of drinks. I thought, I'm bound to drink water and, low calorie sodas. Don't shout at me. Anyway, the order has gone in. I don't know when it's going to arrive. I didn't get to tick a box that said a time, so hopefully it's going to arrive at some point, and I will show you what it looks like. Let's find out. The magical mystery tour that is ordering online. I should say about aha.is, you can click a button to choose English, to see things in English, and it translates like the buttons, which is great. So you know that you're ordering food or you're ordering groceries or from a shop. But when you get into looking at what that actual shop offers in terms of its menu, the menu or the details are all in Icelandic. As you would expect they would be. Why would they translate them into English? But I've become very well acquainted with the translation skills of Mr. or Mrs. or Mix Google. So let's see. I'm hoping for chicken. So if my flight landed at around 4 p.m, my test results were back by 9 p.m, after I'd managed to receive my Indian curry of deliciousness from aha.is. I want to say something about mask wearing. When I arrived in the hotel, I had my mask on, as I'm used to doing in Northern Ireland at all times. And some of the other guests and people behind reception were not wearing masks, and I was slightly horrified. The following day, I went out and discovered it was Iceland Day and went along to an event where nobody was wearing a mask. This seemed so strange to me. And it wasn't until I got talking to somebody that they explained to me that the rules in Iceland had changed just a few days beforehand to say that, in most cases, nobody required to wear a mask. Now, the reason for that is simply that community transfer is so low, practically zero, and because tourists are all tested at the border, it means that they have to have a PCR test showing negative before they're allowed to leave their hotel. So as a result, it's like a kind of utopia of pre-COVID. It took me a while to get used to it, but I loved it when I did get used to it. It was hard coming back to Ireland.
Okay, I'm off to get a PCR test now. Up to 72 hours before you return, in my case, into London Heathrow, you need to get a PCR test no sooner than that. You need to allow time in there for the PCR test results to come back. No point in having a PCR test and then no results to show at the border. Plus you have to register. This could be my turn. No, next one. Plus, you have to register a passenger locator form with the British government before you arrive into London. And you need on that to have registered your day 2 PCR test. You take 2 PCR tests. One before leaving the green list country, in my case, Iceland, that you're coming from, and one to have whenever you get back. It takes a while to get to know all of these things, and it's a faff. It seems unlikely that this will be the testing site, but I'm pretty sure it's it. Okay. We can shortcut across these dandelions. COVID test. Okay. So I think I might need to have a face covering for here. Let me do that before I go any further.
Oh yeah, don't worry. Take your time.
Hi.
How may I assist you?
I need to have a test.
Oh, yeah. Do you have a QR code for the
Here.
test? Walk up
Thanks.
there, all the way to the receptionist.
Sure. I like how you say it in Icelandic. Patrick.
Yeah. Put in your mask. Open your mouth. Say ah.
Well, that was it. It's a bit uncomfortable. and I've immediately come out into the middle of a yard of some kind, service yard. They're a bit unsympathetic. It's not gentle in any way. It's a good old poke at the back of the throat, and it's a good old poke at the back of the nose. I suppose that gets the cells that they need to test. So, and it's a moment of discomfort. Well, 2 moments of discomfort. And who wants discomfort? Nobody. But you know what? If the PCR tests get us on the road and we're heading off to glamorous locations like Reykjavik or the Caribbean, I'm not going to the Caribbean, or Scotland, which is glamorous. One of my favourite places, in fact. Well, then it's worth it. Get your PCR test done. But navigating it, well, that's a whole other maze. Where do you begin? I'll tell you this. The government websites have not been helpful. When it comes to PCR testing, the information available from the government websites has not been that easy to follow. I like to think that I'm quite good at working out what's going on. And I think it's a matter of different agencies of the government all trying to do the right thing, all trying to give pieces of information. But you need to put those pieces of information together in a way which is cohesive. The fact that there was no standardised vaccination certificate for Northern Ireland was a problem, because what was available didn't appear to meet the Icelandic government's needs for this trip to Iceland. And at the border, they're like, yeah, this is great. So, look, I think it's easy to complain. It'd be nice for it all to be worked out. But the fact of the matter is, state services, governmental services, are not flawless. They really aren't. And how can they be? Things have been changing and moving. And the fact that I wanted to get on the road and go to Iceland, or go wherever was available, is my business. It's what I wanted to do. And if I needed to jump through a couple of hoops to do it, I needed to jump through those hoops. And if you need to do that, get jumping. Get the PCR tests done that need to be done. And here's some information on what you need to do if you're traveling from Ireland or the UK and you want to go to a green list country. Listen to these handy tips.
Here are those quick and easy tips. First of all, check your passport. If you're travelling on a British passport to Iceland, you need to have had both vaccinations and have evidence of that. If you're travelling on an EU passport, I was travelling on my Irish passport, then you either need to have both vaccinations completed or a negative PCR test taken up to 72 hours before the point of travel. That's not the same thing as for a British person. Tip 2. Keep your evidence, your vaccination information or PCR test results on hand. You will be asked when checking in and on arrival in Iceland. Tip 3. Be prepared to have a PCR test on arrival. It may be sensible not to drink lots of alcohol on the flight. You will have to quarantine on arrival in your hotel until you receive a negative result. So make sure you have actually booked a hotel for the first night, and be prepared that you're going to have to order in food either from the hotel if they provide it, or from a service like aha.is. And note, there is no Uber Eats, no Deliveroo, no Just Eat delivery in Iceland. So be prepared. Also keep snacks in your bag, but that's a tip for any time of life. Tip number 4. Get familiar with the covid.is website. It contains all the information that you need, including for booking your PCR test before leaving Iceland. You'll need to book this up to 72 hours before your flight time. I chose to book it 48 hours beforehand because I know that the Icelandic system returns results within 5 to 6 hours. This costs around €50. Tip number 5. Book your PCR test for day 2 upon return to the UK. Day 2 means on or before day 2, so that means that you can have the test as soon as you arrive back into London Heathrow, and that's what I did. You will need the booking reference from your day 2 test to put onto your passenger locator form before you return to the UK. Tip number 6. The passenger locator form. This has to be filled out in advance. They will remind you at the airport, before you get on the plane, and upon arrival, but you can do all of this work ahead of time by remembering to fill it out online, if you can, on a mobile or a computer before you leave Iceland. It's very easy to do and will save you a lot of heartache. Those are my 6 handy tips. Hope you found them useful.
So it took 1 hour exactly from the landing of the plane at 11:33 to get through passport control. They could have asked for 4 pieces of information: for your passport, for results of your PCR test from pre-arrival, the booking of your testing, and your passenger locator form. In the event, they looked only at my passport and passenger locator form. So onwards and upwards, and off I go to get another PCR test. PCR testing takes place at the departures level in Terminal 2. It's very handy for people arriving in, although it's a little bit unclear whenever you're booking a quote-unquote day 2 test that you can actually take it on day 0 if today is today 0. Anyway, it was going to be very difficult for me to book somewhere on the second day because hopefully I'll be traveling. So let's get it done now and get the results in the bag, and we can all move on with our lives. I don't think I'm getting used to being PCR tested. That was quite thorough. Iceland, they poked a lot. Here it was more gentle but longer. 10 seconds per side of the mouth and 10 seconds in the nostril. So, what you gonna do? Not complain about it anyway. I hope you found this video about the PCR testing regime and UK border helpful for decisions that you need to make in the run-up to either green list or amber list travel. The longer time at the border and the PCR testing are costly. The PCR tests are costly. They do ramp up the price of a trip, especially for people traveling as a group or in a family. But for me to get away and to be able to travel again, it really was worth it. Both the cost of the PCR tests and the time spent at the border. So, as I say, I hope you found this useful. Maybe let me know in the comments below your thoughts on PCR testing and the border regime where you are, and let us know how it's different. And remember, at the time at which you travel, things may have changed. So this is true for the end of June 2021, traveling from Iceland as a green list country into the UK. It may be different for you depending on where you travel, so do check official sources along the way before you make any final decisions. Thanks so much for being here for this video. I hope you're able to join me again for the next one. Take care and don't forget to subscribe. Bye bye. See what mine looks like.
And my Icelandic.
I'm Patrick Hughes and this is Planet Patrick.